Hello and welcome to Sparky Hobbies. My name is Ben, and this is a gameplay tutorial, uh, a matchup between the Black Newbie deck and a white creature aura deck that I have. And this deck is designed to teach new players advanced strategies and also, hopefully to win. It can win. And in order to play Magic, you need a deck, which if you're a new player, you can often borrow from a friend or somebody who's going to teach you how to learn. The Duels of the Planeswalkers 2012 release is actually a really great way to learn, and watched several of those videos and need a way to represent the life. Before you start the game, you need to look at your opening hand to see whether or not you like it and whether you're going to keep it. The importance of that is usually getting enough land to have the resources to cast your spells. So you draw 7 cards. And I got, okay, so let's look at the opening hand for this deck here. I got 3 swamps, so that's good. I do have a creature that I can play in the first couple turns. I have an equipment that'll buff up some big creature. I have a 4/3 flyer, arrogant vampire, and a combat trick that'll allow me to get past anything that is white. And since I'm playing against white, fear will can't be blocked by artifact or black, only be blocked by artifact or black creatures. So that's what keyword fear is. So that's kind of what you want to look in your opening hand, and so I will go ahead and keep this. I won the draw, so the first step of the turn is untap, but I don't have anything to untap. I don't have anything to reset my board. Every turn you would use your resources, tap them, tap into them, and then you would tap into them and then untap. But since I don't have any thing on the board right now, it doesn't matter. There's no cards with upkeep. I get to draw, but because I get to go first, and going first is such a huge advantage in a 2-player game, the first player does not get to go first. So that is sort of a exceptional rule, and I do not get to draw first. So I enter my main phase. I can play 1 land per turn, which I will do, and I don't have anything that I can cast for 1 black mana. Tapping it would generate the 1 black mana, but I don't have anything to cast with that 1 black mana, so I will pass the turn to my opponent. My opponent doesn't have any board to speak of either. He did keep his hand, so no untap, no upkeep. He'll go through his draw step. He's going to play a special land called Century Step. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters a battlefield, target creature you play gains control of color from of your choice till end of turn. So it's a good way to give creatures protection to get through for like the last bit of damage maybe that you need to do. But in this case, it's kind of a late game thing, and he wants to get it out of his hand right now so that that way it'll be untapped when he needs it for mana. So that's what he'll do during his main phase. He'll go through his combat step, main phase, and end step, and pass the turn back to me. Nothing to untap, nothing to upkeep. I draw a card. I drew a swamp, which I will play. I will tap for 2 to play the Slith Bloodletter. So I generated 2 black mana, tapping into those swamps. And up here in the upper right corner is the 2 black swamps, 2 black mana that is required. The skull is the symbol for the black mana. So my swamps generated the black mana. I spent it to cast my Slith Bloodletter. It's on the stack. My opponent has nothing to respond, so it comes into play. And it's a 1/1 creature for 2. It says whenever Slith Bloodletter deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it'll get bigger if I can do combat damage to my opponent. And I can pay 1 black and any other mana of any other color, or even black itself, and regenerate Slith Bloodletter. So it can act as a pretty good blocker as well. Once you have creatures on the board, they can attack, except for the first turn they come into play. When they first come into play, they're a little bit disorientated. They just got switched from like a library from your hand as a spell to like actually manifest in form as a creature. So they take a little bit of while to get used to it, and I typically turn them upside down to denote that they're summoning sick. It allows my opponent to also read the card if they're sitting across from me. But that's not really a rule, that's just how I do it. And so he's summoning sick, he can't attack this turn, but he'll be able to attack next turn. And so I will pass the turn back to my opponent. My opponent has that special land that he gets to untap. Oops, what is... Okay, there we go. My camera got just a little bit messed up. And so he'll untap, no upkeep, draw. He's going to go ahead and play a Plains. No. He'll probably play another special land. Special land he's playing is a kind of a graveyard recursion. It's called Emira, the Sky Ruin. It comes in a battlefield tapped, so that's why he wants to play it now, so that he can have it untapped and used for mana later. And it says at the beginning of upkeep, if he controls 7 or more planes, he may return target creature card from his graveyard to the battlefield. Her graveyard, his graveyard, I'm a him, so I guess it's his. And it adds 1 white mana to his mana pool when it is activated, when it is tapped. So it comes into battlefield tapped. He doesn't have anything he wants to play for 1 white mana, so he will pass the turn back to me. So I untap, no upkeep, draw. I drew a creature, but I'm going to play a swamp. I really want my Swift Bloodletter to get through for damage, so I played the swamp during my main phase. I will go and enter my combat phase, declare that I'm attacking. I'll declare attackers. My opponent doesn't have any response, so my Swift Bloodletter gets a +1/+1 counter and is now a 2/2. Second main, I do have a spell that I could cast for 3, so I will tap for 3 and play a Volshock's Battle Gear. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 if I equip him, so that'll make 1 creature fairly big. If that creature dies, equipment stays is on the field. You can only equip any time that you could play a sorcery. And in fact, like, this is something that, like, I don't know why they talk about this and kind of craziness, but you have to do everything that you want to do during your turn. Everything that you do has to be done during your turn, with only 2 exceptions, and that is instances and abilities. This regenerate is an ability, so I can play it during activate it during my opponent's turn. This activated ability specifically says that it can only be played during any time that I could play a sorcery, and only instances and abilities get played my other turn. So of course the sorcery has to happen during my turn during my main phase. So just for new players out there, just so you know. I attacked. I played this during my second main. I'm going to end step. My opponent doesn't have anything, so he'll get the turn will be passed to him. Doop. Okay. He untaps. Upkeep, no upkeep, draw. He will play a Plains. He doesn't want that Slith Bloodletter to get any bigger. So my opponent's going to tap for 3 and play an Enchantment Aura, enchanting my creature, and it's Cage of Hands. He paid 1 white and 2 of any other color. When an enchanted creature can attack or block, and he can pay 1 white and 1 of any other color at any time and return Cage of Hands to his hand. So he just locked down my Slith Bloodletter. My Slith Bloodletter can attack or block now. And he has nothing to do for his second main, so he'll go through his end step and it'll come back to me. Okay, so my Sith Bloodler untaps, even though I won't be able to use him, and I untap my land as well. No upkeep. I draw a card. I will play a swamp. I will tap 4 to play one of the creatures I drew, which is a Dungeon Shade. Cost 1 black and 3 of any color. It's flying, it's a 1/1, but it has an activated ability that I may pay a black mana and it gets 1 bigger. Now there's no tap requirement to add that black mana, so as long as I have black mana, I can do that over and over and over again and pump him up to be a really large creature. So he's pretty good. He comes into play Summoning Sick. He does not have the keyword called haste, and he passes the turn back to me, or I pass the turn back to my opponent. Sorry. Okay, so my opponent untaps. No upkeep, draw. My opponent will play a Plains. He's thinking about returning the Cage of Hands, or rather, since I'm playing my opponent, I'm thinking about returning the Cage of Hands because that Dungeon Shade can get really nasty. What I think I'm going to do as my opponent is I'm going to tap for 4 to cast a spell costing 3 and another spell casting 1. Okie dokie. So the casting cost 1 is an Opal Carotid. It's an enchantment, but whenever one of his opponents, me, successfully casts a creature spell, it'll become a 2/2 creature. So it's actually an enchantment that becomes a creature, and this one costs 3. It becomes a 3/3 first striker knight creature when an opponent successfully casts a creature spell. So those aren't creatures yet. They're not really summoning sick per se. They would be if somehow they became a creature immediately, but so potentially I don't know if I'm going to want to play any more creatures, because if I do, he'll get 2 little guys, which are really nice. So my opponent, that's his main phase, combat phase, no combat, nothing to do to attack, goes through his end step and passes the turn back to me. I untap. I upkeep. Draw. Play a swamp. I have 2 creatures in my hand. One's a flyer, one's a pumper. And I also have that Dance of Shadows that allow all my creatures to get through for damage, so you can't block it. I think I'll tap for 5 and play a creature that won't need to be pumped to retain strength, and it's the 4/3 flyer. I paid 2 black and 3 of any color. Flying is a keyword that means it can only be blocked by other creatures with flying, or reach, as reach says can block a creature as though it had flying. Or does it just say it can block flying creatures? I don't know, I'm not really specific on the keywords of reach. It's summoning sick. I just made a mistake. I should have attacked with my 1/1 and then played my creature, but unfortunately I did it the other way around, so that means that I just turned my opponent's enchantments into a 3/3 first striker and a 2/2 soldier. And now if I were to attack, he'd be able to block with either one and destroy my 1/1 because I have no black mana to pump him up. So that was a mistake on my part. Bad me. So I don't have anything else to do. That was my main phase. Messed up my combat phase, and I go through my end step and pass back to my opponent. And my opponent untaps his land. He's very happy to have a 3/3 first striker because there's really nothing I can do about stopping that. He's going to play the special land again that would give a creature protection, and actually he's going to go ahead and give his 2/2 protection from black until end of turn, because that will allow him to get through for damage on that one. So main phase goes to combat phase, declares attackers, and this one has protection from black. So what protection means is there's an acronym to remember what protection does, and this is it's called debit. So any damage dealt by a black source would be prevented. Any enchantments cannot enchant said creature. It can't be blocked by any creature that is black, and can't be targeted by any black spell or ability. So that's debit. No damage, no equipment, or enchanting, no blocking, no targeting. So that's what it protects against. And so I gave my 2/2 creature pro black and my 3/3 first striker. If he wants to stand in the way and lose a creature, my opponent is quite happy to see me lose a creature. So I will not block, and I take 3 + 2, which is 5. Second main, my opponent will chill out. He'll go through his end step and pass the turn to me. Alright, I untap. Upkeep. No upkeep, draw. Ooh, I got an Extraplanar Lens. Should tap for 4. I really need to do damage to my opponent. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I will tap 3 to play that card called Extraplanar Lens I just got. It's going to require that I sacrifice a land, but it's okay. It says when it comes into play, I may remove a target land I control from the game, which this case will be a swamp. Whenever land with the same name as the imprinted card is tapped for mana, namely swamp, its controller adds 1 mana of his or her mana pool of any time that type of that land could produce. So I'm removing a swamp, so all swamps now tap for an extra black mana. So I can tap this for 2 and this for 2, so a total of 4. I'm going to go ahead and tap 2, 4, generating 4, using 3 of it to enchant my Vampire Flyer with he becomes a 7/3 with my Volshock Battle Gears, and I will declare that I'm attacking. I will declare attackers, and I hit him for 7 + 1, so he goes down 8 life. Okay, I will pass the turn back to my opponent. My opponent untaps. Upkeep. No upkeep. Draw. Ooh. Choices. My opponent's very excited to play this card. Costs 2 white and 3 of something else, and it's called Sigil of the Empty Throne. Because he's playing a very enchantment-heavy deck, it says whenever you play an enchantment, he gets a 4/4 white creature token in play. So whenever he plays a enchantment spell, he gets a 4/4 token. Flyer. Angel. Not good. The race is on. He's going to go ahead and declare that he's attacking. He'll declare attackers for 5, and I go down to 10. And passes the turn to me. So pass turn. I untap. No upkeep. Draw. Yay. A swamp. Play swamp. He did not play. He doesn't have any blockers right now, so I need to do 12 damage to him if possible. He has no blockers, so I don't need to play anything. I can just attack. I wonder why my opponent did that. Well, obviously it was me. I made a mistake. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I pump that into my flyer. I attack him for 17, and my opponent dies. All right. Not the best play on my part. I played for both myself and my opponent, and made a couple mistakes. So obviously you want to pay attention to lethal damage on the board. I think I got a little bit too involved. It's funny, I just was like talking about this the other day on one of my videos, is that I got all wrapped into what the decks were doing, and I just didn't leave a blocker open. I needed a flyer blocker open to my opponent just needed a flyer blocker open to stop it, and so he actually had two choices here. He had the Armored Ascension to play in his hand, and that would have buffed his 3/3 first striker to a, well, not too much because I had 3 special lands, but 2 planes, so a 5/5 first striker, flyer. And he also had a Faith's Fetters, which would have locked down either the Pumper or the Vampire, and that would have been fine. He would have gained 4 life and been in a much better position. Couldn't attack or block. So, yeah, pretty interesting. If you have any questions or comments you wish to leave it below, please do so. If you remember to like the video, I would appreciate it. Know that you liked it. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next game. Bye-bye.